What's up, everybody? I'm going to talk about private membership associations. Going for a drive, going to fill my water, got some laundry in the car. Good time to talk about PMAs. Some of you may have done some cursory internet searching on what a PMA is, and you come upon certain things like the Liberty Dollar Association or a certain chiropractic alternative health services association where you have to join the PMA in order to partake in their services. And so you kind of understand the Liberty Dollar is a good example of how PMAs actually, it's a real life example of it working, of the concept working. When the Liberty Dollar first started out, it got taken down. It was an alternative currency, it was centralized. It got taken down by the US government for basically selling unregistered security or something like that. Now, turns out you can do a lot of stuff in the private domain that you can't do in the public domain. So you can't start a business selling unregistered securities to the public, right? But you can start an association that's revolved around experimental currencies, and everyone joining the association agrees to use those things and not be protected by consumer protection laws and things like that. And according to case law, as long as what the PMA is doing doesn't involve something like severe risk of extreme injury to the person and those types of things, and that of course includes anything to do with Schedule I drugs and illegal firearms, as long as you're not touching those types of things, you can legally do a lot of things that you wouldn't be able to do as just a normal business. So the new Liberty Dollar, it came back as a PMA, and now the government hasn't touched them. So you may think you might associate the PM. You maybe think it's like experimental law, or maybe you think you associate it in your head with like the sovereign citizen movement. And I would encourage you not to do that because they're not the same. And it's not experimental really. The sovereign citizen movement, of course, while there are some valuable aspects to some of those ideas, in regards to the government overreach on what it's actually allowed to do, a lot of it is just idiots who want to be able to drive around without registration and insurance because they make it this big point how, the government is using the aggression, the threat of force, to force you to buy insurance and car registration to drive, right? And you're allowed to think that's bad until you're about 23 or 24. If you're still a libertarian, aka Wahlberg-Tardian, after that, you should probably be put in a camp. The government, there's a very good reason, if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, there's a very good reason that you're required to have insurance and registration when you drive, and the government being bad doesn't mean that everything that it does is bad, right? It's kind of bumpy right here. So you want to, if the government's bad, it'd be a good idea to have your own institutions that are on your side, and then eventually have your own government that's on your side. But if you don't, that doesn't mean you should reject the few things that it does still do to legitimately protect us. So anyways, the PMA is not that. It's not experimental law. It's not some weird, obscure thing that's no one's tested yet. Let me give you some examples of well-known PMAs, right? The Lions Club, the Rotary Club, everyone's favorite, the Freemason, right? Kiwanis, the people that sell those peanuts, right? Kiwanis Club, and there's a whole bunch of others, right? And they're all now, they often have entities, like they'll have an LLC or an S Corp or some kind of corporation or a 501c3 unregistered nonprofit. But when you join one of those organizations, you're not becoming an owner of their corporation, right? You're joining their association. You're joining the Lions Club Private Membership Association, okay? So they're everywhere, right? Usually when you join an organization like that, a lot of times you'll sign a document agreeing to a member and you'll pay your dues and whatnot, and that's that. So they are a thing. And the association itself may not be registered. They, like I said, they may have a corporate entity. All those big organizations, they have a corporate entity, but their group of people is simply a private membership association. So those are things to remember. Now, another question is it experimental, the idea that a PMA is allowed to discriminate? Like, say you form a religious community and your religion is against gays, and you're worried about, will the government force me? Well, the entire idea of a PMA is that it's private, right? And in the Constitution, you're guaranteed the right to free association. Now, you might be asking, has this ever been tested, or is this all just experimental, right? There are plenty of organizations, trust me, that are legally allowed to discriminate on the basis of you being a member of various protected classes, right? There are country clubs that only allow white people. and they are incorporated organizations, and they are private membership associations. So everyone that joins the country club, they don't become an owner of the country club's corporate entity. They become a member of the association. And you might wonder, how is that legal? Well, a long time ago when the Civil Rights Act was passed, immediately, of course, people started suing all these organizations. They would sue the Rotary Club and the Lions Club for not allowing female members, right? And so the Supreme Court had to decide pretty quickly under what situation, because, the Supreme Court is all about, deciding just how far can the government take away our rights, right? It already decided the government can take away our rights, but now it has to draw the line exactly how much of each right can it take away. So it had to very quickly come up with a set of criteria. If you're an organization, what criteria do you have to meet in order to satisfy being a bona fide private club or a genuine private club, and not just an organization that calls itself a private club? They want to make sure that you're not serving the public in any way, shape, or form. You're not public at all. So some of those criteria, not an exhaustive list, and by the way, this is not legal advice. Consult a qualified attorney, not me. But if you look at case law starting from the Civil Rights Act and the decades forward, you'll see what they decided for the criteria was basically an organization had to truly be private, like you cannot do business with the general public. But they found that some of these organizations, like the Rotary Club and others, they would rent out their facilities hall to anybody who wanted to rent it, right? That's doing business with the general public. They would have big events. They would set up tables at all the town events on the town green and stuff, and do booths and everything. They were engaged with the public on a non-stop basis all the time. So there's no way. The Supreme Court was like, you guys cannot call yourself a private club. You engage with the general public all the time. So you must accept women members, right? You're not allowed to exercise your right to free association because you're serving the general public. So if you're serving the general public, you cannot discriminate, right? Another thing was you had to be truly exclusive. You couldn't just open up your membership to all members of the general public minus one protected class. So for example, it was either the Rotary Club or the Lions Club that lost this case because the Supreme Court decided you guys are open to Joe Public minus women, right? You have to be more exclusive than that in order to be considered a bona fide private club. All right, so those are some of the examples. So the PMA is not experimental law. It's not associated at all with the sovereign citizen movement. It's simply a private association of which there are many, many examples. And if you are not just a PMA, but also a PMA that qualifies as a private club, or even a corporate entity that qualifies as a private club, you are given your constitutional right to free association. Whereas normally, if you're engaging with the general public, you do not have the right to free association because the Supreme Court is balancing that against the general public's right to not be discriminated against, which actually is not in the Constitution, but whatever. The Supreme Court likes to play fast and loose with the rules, So that's just a general overview of the private membership association. You want to have a Articles of Association, which is basically like your Constitution. You want to have a membership agreement, which is the contract everyone signs when they join. You want to have dues, whether it's one time or yearly. That establishes your organization's legitimacy. You can sometimes open a bank account in the name of a PMA because banks often have products specifically for like sporting clubs and sports teams and town organizations that one person is still responsible for if something goes bad, but you can often open a bank account in the name of your association. Check with your local bank. You cannot own land in the name of a PMA, usually, as far as I know, unless there's some weird state law in some weird state. Generally, you can't own land with it. But if you follow those types of things, and by the way, I recommend using a DocuSign service to sign your membership agreement, so you're not dealing with like mailing papers all around the country. Just sign up. I use PandaDoc. They don't pay me to say this, but PandaDoc is pretty great. And there are some others where you're basically just sending your member agreement. You send your Articles of Association to the Board of Trustees. Oh yeah, there's also a Board of Trustees. So you have your Board of Trustees, which could be 3, 4, 5 people, and they all sign the Articles of Association, and that forms the PMA. And they can e-sign it if you use a PandaDoc or a similar service. And then once your organization is formed, now you can accept members, and then you're going to be sending your member contract to anyone who wants to join, and they can e-sign that, and then they pay their dues, and then they're a member. So you got, and then make sure you don't do business with the general public, and you're truly exclusive in your membership criteria, that is outlined in your articles of association, or a different document that's ratified by a separate document that's ratified by the Board of Trustees. So that's basically it. Got any PMA questions, ask me below the video. You don't have to pay a lawyer $400 to write a PMA agreement. There's those like sketchy websites offering, if you don't know what you're doing, then sure, pay one of those guys, but you don't have to. You can do it yourself. Anyways, have a great day, folks. Returntotheland.org.